Namaskar and welcome to Sunset Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Now, today we're going to talk about the WTO reforms. The 12th Ministerial Conference of World Trade Organization is scheduled to take place from 30th of November to 3rd of December in Geneva. Now, the World Trade Organization is the principal forum for setting the rules of international trade. For the past 2.5 decades, it has helped reduce barriers to trade in both goods and services and created a dispute resolution system that supporters of WTO say has reduced the threat of trade wars. However, with negotiations on a comprehensive development agenda floundering due to disagreements amongst the member nations, the WTO is under considerable pressure to achieve meaningful results now. The Committee on Agriculture is yet to find a solution to the issue of public stockholding. India has warned that there is an attempt to drive a wedge between the developing and least developing countries, that is LDCs, on public stockholding and sought a permanent solution on this issue, which is critical for procurement by agencies such as Food Corporation of India or FCI. The Commerce and Industry Minister, Piyush Goyal, has also recently said that developed countries linking WTO reforms with special and differential treatment being provided to poor and developing nations is unfair, and the trade body needs to reassess the way it has been conducting its affairs. Today, we're going to talk about all these aspects. We'll discuss and analyze what exactly is happening at WTO, what kind of reforms are we talking about, and which are the key issues which will be taken up at this ministerial conference. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with, we have with us Dr. Jayant Das Gupta. He's a former ambassador to WTO from India. We're also joined by Mr. A.K. Bhattacharya, editorial director of Business Standard, and Professor Murali Kalumal is also joining us, professor at the Center for WTO Studies at IIFT. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Sunset Television. Let me begin with you, Dr. Das Gupta, since you've been there, you've done that. So, for us to understand the importance of this ministerial conference, that is the 12th ministerial conference, and the key issues which are on table there this time around, because a lot of pressure seemingly on WTO as an organization to deliver results.
Yes, that is quite right, because I think the last ministerial conference could not be held, and there are issues which have come up for discussion, but the important issues which are likely to be harvested, for instance, are fisheries subsidies for illicit, unregulated and unreported fishing, how to discipline the subsidies that countries give to their fishing fleets and companies. The second issue is about domestic regulations in services. Now, disciplines may come in there. It is going to be a kind of a plurilateral agreement, which will be multilateralized in the sense that there may be about 50 or 70 countries which take obligations, but they will give the same benefits to all the 164 members of the WTO.
Okay.
So these are the two which are likely to be harvested, but there is a long agenda, and important amongst them is a proposal of the European Union for reforms in the WTO. The other proposal is for agriculture, domestic subsidies and market access negotiations. Which way should they go?
Okay.
And finally, two other things which are also likely to be pushed very hard by the proponents are on e-commerce and on investment facilitation.
Okay, clearly. So these are very key elements when you're talking about the agenda there. And, I'd like to bring in Mr. Bhattacharya here. Mr. Bhattacharya, quite a lot of issues which have been pending over the years. Negotiations have been going on and on all these aspects. And obviously, there have been, different kind of push and pull from either the developing nations bloc or the developed nations bloc. And now we're talking about LDCs as well. these apart, the issue of reforms and then the proposal by the European Union, that also seemingly is pretty much, in the nick of time, because we're talking about tangible results to be delivered by the organization. It has done well over the past 2.5 decades. But recently, there have been a lot of, dead ends instead of results in negotiations.
Well, a dead ends is actually a mild expression to describe really what has happened to the World Trade Organization architecture that was created in 2000. I think what we have seen in the last 4 years, that is starting with the Donald Trump era, what we have seen is the gradual demise or the dilution in the power and efficacy of a multilateral trading framework, wherein the world's largest trading partners, trading countries, were actually not playing by the rule book that is given out in the World Trading Organization, rule copy book. Mm-hmm. Now, the question that we have seen, what we have seen in the last few years is how the multilateral trading system has taken a big hit, how the dispute resolution system, in spite of being in place, it is without any, effective number of judges. Country after country, in spite of their being a member, have been raising tariffs. Market access is actually not an issue. So what we have seen in the last few years is actually a major attack and a challenge to a multilateral trading system where countries have opted for bilateral trading packages or regional trading pacts. Mm-hmm. In this background, this is the first ministerial which takes place after Mr. Joe Biden taking charge of the United States of America, with the promise that he will probably help the world regain the original position that World Trade Organization was given when it was created. Okay. So I think that's the first big challenge that I would say that something has to be decided and wrestled with in the coming ministerial. That is the world, is ready to take steps to restore the trading to its original position of a multilateral trading framework. Okay. Number two, in my view, is a big challenge of what do you do with the concerns of a developing country like India on trade in services. Forget about trying to include e-commerce into its arena, but what about trade in services, and how does India play in that? How about introducing rules parity with regard to services and merchandise trade? Okay. And number three, in my view, would be what kind of definitional change that you would like to see in by a country that is called a developing country or a least developed country, because this is very, very critical for India's from India's point of view. Till February 2020, for example, you had a country like South Korea was described as a developing country, whereas so this World Trade Organization has to wrestle with the idea of the definition of which is a developing country, which country should gain the advantages of being a developing country. And because this is very critical for India. I think these are the three major issues, apart from the market access and apart from the many issues that Mr. Dasgupta very elaborately pointed out. Indeed, that's a large bouquet of issues there, which you mentioned, Mr. Bhattacharya. Let me bring in Professor Murli here. Professor Murli, from your point of view, not only the items on agenda for discussion at the 12th Ministerial Conference, but also the overall issue of WTO reforms, as was elaborated by, Mr. Bhattacharya and, Mr. Dasgupta as well, in terms of what needs to be done so that WTO retains its relevance at a global level, and all those issues which are being pointed out by member nations, or, forcing them to go for bilateral or regional FTAs.
that is something which should not be, which cannot be taken positively vis-a-vis the WTO's existence.
See, let me put it in 3 points. One is, what actually WTO may need to do is, to start with, when they notify the tariff schedule for each country, there is a large element of non-ad valorem tariff present, and the ad valorem equivalence needs to be calculated, and the simple averages needs to be arrived, so that we get a correct representation of the country's averages. Because I've observed, a country like New Zealand, where the WTO notification says 3.6%. If the non-ad valorem is included, it goes to 33.6. So that's the kind of in the agriculture products. So that's the kind of gap or the difference in the perspective. What is given to the world. So when we say developed countries have very low tariff in agriculture, the chunk of their non-ad valorem tariff, which is expressed in their local currencies, is out of calculation. So it is kept away from the books, and only the ad valorem simple averages of the ad valorem is taken into account. Of course, they are bound at local currency. So you also have this exchange rate variations when they happen. According to that, your cost of compliance also will go up and your competitiveness will come down. The other aspect, I think, to have a meaningful solution is also to bring in the extent of the private standard usage, which came up in 2009. And also along with that, you have a large amount of MRL regulations, maximum residual limits, which are imposed by developed countries. Tariff is just one element, but MRLs can go up to 600 and 600 plus different chemical. So agrochemicals, veterinary drugs and contaminants, and all these sort of things are actually clubbed together, and they form about 600 plus.
Okay.
That element of the MRL notification, there is a huge gap there. First of all, in the SPS TBT measures itself, are not notified with HS link. Whereas, you have the tariff information provided at detailed 6-digit or 8-digit level at national country level, it is notified.
Okay.
Whereas, the SPS and TBT are hardly mentioned, and HS codes are not at all mentioned in these cases. The other aspect to have a meaningful negotiation is to talk about the digital trade. With the increase in digital trade, there are actually two modes of trade flow which we observe.
Okay.
Through the customs and through the wire form. So the wire form trade is completely not accounted for by many countries, and most countries do not account for these wire form of trade flows, and they become very important when we actually talk about revenue implications. So although you may find that most of the countries are having a revenue neutral impact, but some of them may have a deeper impact in terms of the reduction in the customs duty for these products. So what I observed from my study is that there is a decades gap between developed and developing countries. Developed countries had an impact of this digitizable product. Share going down in 1997, and for developing countries it's about 2008.
Okay.
So with this brief, I would like to stop here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Professor Murli, you've raised some very interesting points there. Let me take them to Dr. Dasgupta here. Dr. Dasgupta, two aspects. One, in terms of reforms, the basic thing which Mr. Bhattacharya also referred to, in terms of defining what is a developing nation or a developed country, or at least, developed country. That definition itself is at the core of various negotiations, and we have seen a lot of hurdles coming in because of, that issue. That's one part when we talk about reforms. The other, as, Professor Murli was pointing out, in terms of the issue of digital trade or e-commerce as well, very important in today's age and era.
On the first point, the US was the main proponent of graduating certain developing countries like India, like China, from the fold of developing countries based on 4 criteria. They said that this game of self-declaration as a developing country cannot go on. And countries like China, India, etc. have benefited a lot from the open trading system. So what they suggested was that if you are an OECD member or a G20 member or you have been declared a high-income country by the World Bank, or you have more than 0.5% of global trade for your country, then you get graduated and you have to take the same commitments as a developed country.
Okay.
Now, this was during the Trump era. Fortunately for us, of course, India and many other developing countries, most developing countries, in fact, they opposed it tooth and nail. This was unfair, and this went against the grain of the Marrakesh Agreement, and even before that, the GATT Agreement. Now, this has been not been pushed very hard by the US in the past 1 year or so, since the Biden administration came to power. Safely say that this is not going to be on the table because the US is not pushing very hard at it for this ministerial. What is being pushed is the EU proposal. Now, the EU proposal spans all the three functions of the WTO, which are the negotiating function, the monitoring and deliberative function, and the dispute settlement function. Now, I will just focus on these two functions. As far as the monitoring and deliberative functions are concerned, the EU proposal speaks of allowing the committees to be for deliberations, which means that, in effect, they can start negotiations on new issues. Now, new issues normally are deliberated at the ministerial level, and only after the ministers have given their nod, a new issue is negotiated. Now, this, if you give it to the committees, there is going to be an asymmetry because most of the poor country delegations, the developing country delegations, they don't have enough people to attend all the meetings.
Indeed.
And so their case will go by default. They will not be able to influence the agenda even one bit. So that is one point. The second point is the proposal speaks of empowering the Director General of the WTO and the Secretariat. Now, if you take the composition of the Secretariat alone, you will find that there is a preponderance of people from developed countries. And developing countries find very little representation there. That is just one point. The second point is, what is sought is that the Secretariat will get into countries and interact with civil society organizations, for instance, and they will then carry back that message and that information and feed it into a committee.
Okay.
Now, that is going to be very dangerous for developing countries.
Okay.
In the case of developed countries, it can perhaps be checked. So that is the second one.
Okay.
The third one is that they want to bring in the business community, especially of the developed countries, because most of the large corporations are stationed, located in developed countries.
Okay. 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 Clearly, you know, those are some major issues there, Dr. Dasgupta. I'd like to bring, Mr. Bhattacharya here and Dr. Murali also on these issues. Mr. Bhattacharya, India's voice concerns on a number of issues. As Dr. Dasgupta was pointing out, it's not only limited to the definition of developing countries, but also on the issue of public stock holdings, on the issue of fisheries trade as well. And those are very key issues, not only from India's perspective, but from the perspective of, whole lot of developing countries and the LDCs as well.
Well, absolutely. I think, agricultural fisheries are going to be very, very critical, particularly for a country like India. And I think India, the Indian negotiators and the team that will be present at the ministerial will have to make sure to press for some sort of a mechanisms by which commercial agriculture is treated a little differently from small-scale and subsistence farming, because India has a large segment of marginal, small subsistence farming that is going on, and they cannot come under the kind of regulatory regime that WTO wants to impose on entire commercial farming, so to say. So I think India will have to approach this issue very, very cautiously, and so that the interest of large number of small farmers, whether they are in the field or on the seas to do fishing, and that is very, very important. And the second issue that Indians will have to be very mindful of is how to make sure that the parity in rules is between trade in services and trade in merchandise goods.
Okay.
I think that will be another issue. And in my view, the third issue which India will have to be really tackle is how do you make the dispute settlement body, dispute resolution body, far more effective to make sure that the multilateral spirit of trade is retained and steps are taken against those who don't follow
Okay.
the rule book or the norms.
Okay, clearly, and that issue of dispute settlement is something which is there on the EU proposal for reforms as well, and it's going to be really important from the perspective of keeping this the spirit of multilateral cooperation there. Professor Murali, your views there, the concluding question I have in terms of India's concerns, as I was saying earlier, on all these points, be it the agriculture, the fisheries, or the trading services part as well. Quite a lot of work to do there at WTO.
Yeah, true. Actually, we need to do a lot of things domestically also, and a lot of legwork to be done in the international level also. So some of the things we have been doing, and we are in way towards moving towards is that to raise the formal size of the economy. I mean, formalization of Indian economy. So by that I mean, how much of our economy is formal and how much is informal, so that whenever there is an import surge or the response is quicker, faster, and maybe we are able to identify HS code based trade, import, export, production, consumption. All these are actually linked in terms of HS codes.
Okay.
So one step towards that is actually linking the GST and e-way bill, and then we could actually have data from 2016 onwards. So GST is that way a big enabler for India to respond to some of these trade response, response to import surges, and the other aspect which I would like to point out here is that the impact of self-declaration.
Okay.
Self-declaration, according to me, is a big no-no for any country, because the impact can be seen very clearly in terms of SPS and TBT notifications, which actually we have at the center a database on SPS and TBT. So I keep record of all these notifications by different countries, and so I can get the status of these countries, as per the WTO classification and World Bank classification. So it's just a question of, categorizing them and reassigning them. So what I find is, in the terms of WTO classification, the developed countries have the largest notification, are the largest notifiers. But the moment you shift to World Bank classification, the developing countries have the highest notifications. So high-income countries are the largest barrier creators in terms of SPS and TBT notifications also. Okay. So this is one aspect which I would like to open up here.
Okay.
And maybe discuss.
Okay. Okay, indeed, and that's one issue which has been raised by India as well. That's quite an interesting way of looking at the data and pointing out as to how which way things are moving. Thank you so much, Professor Murali, Mr. Bhattacharya, as well as Dr. Dasgupta, for sharing your views and inputs with us and our viewers. Quite clearly, as our experts are pointing out, there is a lot of work to be done vis-a-vis the WTO, specifically in terms of reforms, and more specifically, when we're talking about reforms in the dispute redressal mechanism as well, there are other aspects where India has raised its concern quite a lot of times, specifically in the area of agriculture and fisheries as well. We'll keep a close watch on what happens at the 12th Ministerial Conference in WTO and bring you more details once it's done. Till then, keep watching Sunset Television. Thank you.